there's nothing that like city is. Yeah.
Awesome. First of all, welcome everybody. It's a continuation series. We've been driving with different activities on human behavioral design thinking, meeting the possibilities of technology today. We call it AI meets design. Welcome to Digitalist, the one who have showed up here in physical presence. Glad to have you all here. I was yesterday evening in working out at the same time, 6 o'clock. It was this thing called horizontal rain, you know, not the vertical that it typically comes from, but when I opened the door of the office, it was this flying horizontally. I was like, hopefully it's not like this tomorrow, but I'm glad you all make it. We have a stream as well. Hello internet, everybody over there. Today we have two speakers. I'm going to announce them a little while. My name is Teppo. You can call me the tall guy. Same on the starting letter, or just throw me something, then I also react on that one. Happy to have you all here in a place where, like, every day we have about 20-25 of us, plus some startups that work with us in this office, trying to bridge the gap of all this and make this magic work together with technology and design thinking. Some practicalities. I think physical practicalities you've all figured out. When there is a break and so on, the bathrooms are on the right hand side if you're looking at it from this direction. If and when, hopefully you feel sharing, the ones who are over there in the internet, I'll be watching out Twitter, there's the hashtag of Digitalist. There's my alias, there's Krista's. Krista is also, she's also a person to watch at a little bit on Twitter. You know, if you're using it, you know, follow her. She's kind of I've been doing it for a while, so she shares pretty well. Should do that, all of you. You know, any other social media platforms, hashtag Digitalist, hashtag design thinking will help you through the channels. I'll promise to comment even during the event if I'm not over here. Can't do two things. The ones who need the stream link, it's over there. It's also on the, if any of you came through the direct invitation or from the Meetup group. Good. Then a little bit to the agenda and introductions. We have two very talented people today sharing thoughts with us. The whole idea of Digitalist when we do events is share experiences. The ones who are the most brave, they also share experience of what didn't work. Typically we hear a lot of things also that worked. We've had the pleasure to work with City of San Francisco on the Civic Bridge program now about half a year soon, I think, 6 months, 4 months, time flies. And I've always looked very positively on the kind of impact, the scale of design thinking impact that City of San Francisco and the Office of Innovation, the Civic Bridge program has been able to kind of make in an organization like a governmental thing. And that's why when we had the chance, I asked Krista that, hey, could you share some light on that one maybe? You know, how does it happen? How do you make the change happen? How do you make it in that scale? And then Bethany comes from very good service design, journey thinking background, and we thought combining these two things would give us a good ground for today. It's a very open idea exchange. We that are sharing our thoughts today will make part of the program. The more active you are, the more active the people on the web will be. They'll have a big impact on it as well. Are you all ready? Good. Ready, steady. There we go. Bethany, you want to do the swap with the technical stuff?
Yes,
Good.
I do.
So that you get the presentations on go. Perfect. I've been combining like human behavioral first academical studies and then these engineering programs pretty much all of my professional life, which is like 20 years. I studied both of those subjects during the time that I was still doing like university studying. Now I have to do it during the evenings after the work. It's kind of a fascinating T-shape of a working model. You have the holistic design, behavioral thinking that you are doing your best to combine with this kind of a very vertical solution, use case, feature type of a thinking that is very familiar for all of us that do technical development. And even though working with several companies on a global scale, hundreds of thousands of people on a single organization, it's been always one of the most challenging is the scale, the size of operations. You can do one thing extremely good, pixel perfect, even pixel perfect throughout the whole journey, but doing a single thing on an operations like 10,000 people, 20,000 people, that's the hard thing. Even though the screen is not working, I'm still going to welcome you, Krista. Hey, Krista from Office of Civic Innovation. Is that the right way to do it?
Yeah, that's it.
Awesome, awesome. Please give it a big hand.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm happy to share a little bit more about our team and the work that we do. So my name is Krista Kanalakis. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer for the City and County of San Francisco. I've been with the city for 6 years and really started about a year into the creation of our team. So we are, you might not have heard of us. Our team was created in 2012 when Mayor Lee first became mayor, our past mayor first became mayor. And at that time we were really the first innovation office inside of a city government. And it was really about, we're in San Francisco. We are in a city where in offices like Digitalist and other companies around our city, companies are really inventing the future, inventing the way we move and we work together and we interact and we do our laundry and whatever it might be. And yet, sometimes inside of government, it feels like the city services are not necessarily able to keep up at the level of our residents' expectations. And so the vision behind the team was really to be a bridge between the private sector and the creative sector and the design sector and local government. And how do we bring in those best practices from the private sector inside of government. So our mandate is really around helping departments and being that bridge between both sides. So oftentimes we act as a sort of a translator. We're inside of the city and we sort of have insight into what are some of the big challenges and pain points that our various city staff have, whether it's the city government runs everything from A to Z, we like to say, airport to a zoo. So we do everything from public health to transit to libraries to public safety to economic development. It really runs the gambit, and the level of sort of interaction that you have on a daily basis is really a lot of it has to do with what the city is sort of providing. And yet, there aren't necessarily always the models and the tools to stay sort of innovative and modern. And so that's really the sort of impetus of the creation of our office. And so how we do that is basically through partnerships. So our view, we are a very small team. We are about 4 people. So a small,
We'll see.
This happens all the time in the city, so
Great.
it's fine. I'm totally used to it. So we are a small, nimble team inside of a giant city government, city family. So the city is 30,000 people, 30,000 city staff, the largest employer in San Francisco. So how do we, with our small team of about 4 full-time people, make it?
You're 4.
We're 4 right now, yeah. How do we make an impact at scale? And so how we do that, I don't really want to touch anything, but so this is just sort of thinking about we're in San Francisco, this innovation capital. So how we do it, so this is our mission and vision. So our vision is really to make government more collaborative and inventive and responsive for San Franciscans. And how we do that is really by supporting our city departments through resources, new technologies, and really new approaches to problem solving all around sort of these big city priorities. And so what we wanted to talk about here today is really a program that we've been partnering with Digitalist and many other companies on. It's a program called Civic Bridge. And it's really thinking about how do we create these models for the smart, talented people in our city to come in and work side by side with our city staff and bring in these new approaches to really improve quality of life for our residents. And so this is sort of the basics of how it works. It's a cohort-based program, so we start with our city staff. So because we're inside the city, we sort of have these relationships across the city, and we try and understand what are some of the big challenges facing the city staff that they might have gotten roadblocks on or don't quite know how to tackle. And then we recruit private sector partners to come in and on a pro bono basis, over 16 weeks is our cohort length. Those companies come in, they dive in, they work side by side with the city staff to understand the problem and then develop recommendations and hopefully some prototypes and really actionable steps to help equip the city staff with a way to move forward on that problem. So the idea is how do you sort of accelerate problem solving at scale for some major civic challenges. Let me just get through a couple more and then I'll do questions. So these are some of the categories of projects. So we do design and user research, strategic planning and facilitation, and communications and branding. So these are sort of areas that we've identified where there's both sort of that supply of talent in our city, and there's also sort of a gap in some ways in terms of the skill sets. So we want to sort of find that sweet spot of things where the companies that we work with can really make a big impact. And these are just the types of problems that we want to be working on. So this is a priority of our mayor to how do we make San Francisco more clean and safe and livable. And so these are the things that when we're talking to our different city staff, we don't ask them about what types of problems do you need technology for. We really just try and understand what their problems are and just really listen to see what challenges they're facing, and then we bring in the right partners to respond. And this is just some of the impact that we've had. So the program started in 2015. We've had 38 projects since then. We've estimated that about the financial value of the pro bono support that's been given is about $3.9 million, and that's represented by over 24,000 hours of volunteer support, which we're very proud of. And just to share a sampling of some of the projects that have been in this last cohort. We have, so the one that Digitalist is working on, where is it? Oh, here it is. So it's pit stops. So you might have seen some of our pit stops around the city. They're our public toilet program, and as an example, they had seen that their pilot has been successful, and they were looking for ways to sort of expand that and operationalize, create sort of a more operational model around the expansion of that program. So that's just I think that was all the slides that I had. Oh, and this is just in terms of the benefits that we hear from our partners in terms of what they get out of participating in the program. So for our city staff, they get access to really unique skills and expertise. They get, they have this accelerated way of solving a problem, so they sort of get the support and buy-in from their leaders and their department to say, like, okay, you're going to dedicate your time with this partner to kind of move forward more quickly on solving this problem. For the industry partners, a lot of them see it as a way, the bigger companies see it as a way to recruit and retain top talent. So San Francisco is a very kind of competitive talent market, and they want to be able to provide different exciting opportunities for their employees to give back. And so that's sort of the value that they see. They also just want to build more goodwill and sort of be good stewards of our city and and be supportive of the community. And then on the sort of individual volunteer basis, the people are looking for ways to apply their skills in an impactful way. So I think there are a lot of volunteer opportunities that aren't necessarily taking advantage of people's intelligence or in terms of the real skills and value that they're creating in their workplace. So we want to create meaningful, kind of impactful volunteer engagements for the city. And then it's really a lot about, I think what we've heard most of all is learning. They get to learn about how government works. And they really get to build empathy around the complexities of what it takes to run a city and the mechanics of what it takes to run a city. I think a lot of participants come in and they're like, oh, I feel like I've got this problem figured out. And then they start to go, on ride-alongs and really do some like stakeholder interviews, start to dive into some of the policies that are in place, and you sort of start to develop some empathy and deeper understanding of why it might be harder than you might think from sort of that public perspective. And that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, couple of questions.
Yeah.
Right away, I was thinking about the numbers first of all. We had also this time when the Civic program kicked off, we had the kickoff actually in the same premise. We have about 200 people, I think, 200 something in a kind of a single year of a program, and then each stream involves like easily 10, 20 people more from the city organization. How big of a crew you think you have impacted within the city?
Yeah, so it's about 450 people since the beginning of the program. So yeah, each cohort is about 70 to 80 people. And that's like the core team members on each team. So it's usually on the partner side, it's usually 3 to 5 people. And on the city side, it's usually kind of 2 to 3 plus. Then there's all sort of the stakeholders that get brought in to sort of weigh in and give input on the problem itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was astonished in the first or like the first 3-4 weeks when we started working together. It's when you come from a pure like UX and design background, and then with the government organization, the kind of a difference in working models was like physically present in pretty much every meeting. But the fact of how well we actually both learned throughout the process, that was what made actually this personally an impact.
Yeah, I mean, I think for getting things done in government, especially when you're trying to do new things and changing the way that people do their business today, one of the key things is to develop buy-in for a new approach, a new way of solving a problem as early on as possible. So even if you've come up with the most beautiful solution, if you present it to someone and they don't feel like they were kind of brought along with you in the process, it can feel, it can easily just not be adopted.
Yep.
And so it's it can take more work up front to do that and kind of figure out, okay, who are the key stakeholders? Like, who are the people that actually need to make a decision? Who are the people that might be affected by this later on, that maybe they don't need to be brought on as a project team, but maybe you do like a brown bag where they at least feel like it's not something completely new to them. And then who are the people that you're going to actually ask to like implement this in the future? And so kind of doing that stakeholder analysis is really important inside of government to really move things forward and also make things more sustainable over time, so that, you know, if someone leaves, it's not just like this sort of disappears. It's like it kind of gets established inside of a department.
What's the expectation? What do you know, how do you see like the coming 2-3 years? Where do you see the program going?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it's a lot about, there's a couple things. One is really around how do you build a muscle around being a good partner as a city. So one thing that we do really early on in the scoping of these projects is really encourage city staff to be open about how the problem might get solved. I think oftentimes the normal way that the government interacts with partners is through really formal methods of kind of requests for proposals and contracts and legal, like really detailed legal agreements and really detailed scopes of work. But oftentimes that doesn't necessarily, well, either maybe the problem wasn't necessarily fully deeply understood when that was written, or it's just, you know, things change over time, and so you don't want to get locked into a certain scope if that if the dynamics of that problem change. And so I think one of the things we really encourage for both sides really is to be really open about how that problem might be solved. And that's really a muscle I think that can be built with city staff around how do you build more curiosity. So rather than saying, oh, I know exactly how this is going to be solved, it's more like, how do you leverage everyone's strengths to say, like, you are an expert in street cleaning, and honor that, and then also leverage that and really use that to and to help sort of have that new solution, empower that person to do their job even better. So yeah, I think it's a lot about sort of open-mindedness and a change in mindset. It's also about really how do we make an impact and really actually change the way a department works. And so there's been some examples where a project in our program started off as a website. It's a website to help people search and find affordable housing online. So it started off as sort of it's a complex project, but it was really focused on it was a technology project. But over time, that department has seen how just by building something that was really user-centered and really accessible and sort of opened up that one service, they're now looking at that as a sort of a lighthouse for the rest of the department and how they deliver, all kinds of other services. So I think that's kind of a good example of one where kind of Civic Bridge was a 4-month part of that, now it's a 4-year project. But it really catalyzed that project from the beginning in a way that helped to really change the culture and sort of change the way that department sort of delivers and thinks about how it's delivering services. I know.
Curtis, go for it.
Did you?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Feel free.
How does your team actually identify problems that you're going to take on, as opposed to, I imagine there's an unlimited number.
Yeah.
But what is it? How do you go about deciding these are the ones we're going to hit?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So number one, we want to work on mayoral and citywide priorities, and so and part of that is because we want the sort of executive buy-in for the city staff who are project managing this to get the support they need to really spend time and ask for their colleagues to kind of do things in different ways, and so that's really important. Another one is it the right type of problem that it makes sense for an external partner to work on? So there's some things that, there's a lot of problems within sort of government that don't necessarily make sense. It would, it would take too long for an external person to sort of get up to speed on the context of it or the policy of it. So we try and scope problems where a partner can kind of dive in, and with some sort of discovery and research up front, can kind of quickly get deep into understanding that as a problem. And then there's sort of more kind of or like logistical things, like we require that the city staff person dedicate about 20% time on the project. So if someone's not able to do that, then it's just not a good fit for the program. And that's about it. And a commitment to kind of sustaining it after the end of the project. So we don't want sort of a report to be shared and have that sit on a shelf. We want a problem that's important enough and a priority enough for that department that they want to really push it forward after the engagement. Yeah.
On the flip side of that, do the people who come up with the solutions or who build the solutions end up using this almost as like a incubator to come up with ideas and then like build businesses around these ideas?
In the case of Civic Bridge, not really. Because it's more like consulting than product development, I would say. We actually explicitly don't have teams build technology because oftentimes there isn't necessarily you don't think about maintenance, right? Like you don't want to hand something off and then have them, if they didn't build it, then you weren't part of it, then it might not be the right for them. But we do actually have another program, a startup in residence program, that is exactly what you're saying. So it's very technology specific. So it's understanding what are big technology challenges the city is facing, and then we invite startups to come in and build a product that's addressing that problem. And that product is then theirs. It's not the city's. So then they can leverage that experience in the startup program to then go work with other cities on the same challenge. Yeah.
Awesome. Good. I've already captured at least behavioral things that you had as a black magic in making this so impactful.
It's just lots of emails.
Yeah. Is that it?
Yeah.
Actually, you're doing a lot of like face-to-face workshopping, basic design thinking methods, which typically on a government organization you don't see that much actually. So you're lifting those ones up. So that's, I think, and then things, as you said, you actually are even limiting pure technological solutions away and putting people to think things as a service, as a journey, as a customer, mindset. And I think those, at least based on my knowledge, those have been two very, very impactful things that you've been able to do with the Civic Bridge.
Yeah, I think it's really about how do you leverage the strengths of both sides. So, there's so many experts in the city that know, the ins and outs of curbs or sewers or, whatever, public health. Like, there's so many amazing human beings inside of government that are so passionate but might not have the right access to information or skills or technology to know quite how to sort of take the next leg. And then on the private sector side, there's such a wealth of talent here, and so, but don't necessarily have that insight or interest maybe in even taking a job in government. But that doesn't mean that we can't sort of leverage that in another way that's meaningful for those employee volunteers.
Awesome, good.
I have a very practical question.
Yeah.
And a gross one as well.
Oh.
I'm interested in poop.
Oh yeah.
In the streets of San Francisco. So are you going to continue or expand the pit stop program?
Sorry?
Are you going to expand or continue the pit stop program?
Yeah, I mean that was the whole idea behind
the one that we're working.
That you're working on is that there is a commitment to expand that program, and the project goal was really to develop a kind of strategic operational model for that program.
Great.
Cool. Curtis, you had one as well.
How do you decide who the right partner is for the right problem?
On the private sector
Well,
side?
yeah, for like when you identify a problem,
Yeah.
and then you're like, well, who's the right, how did you know Digitalist was the right pit stop partner for this kind of thing?
Yeah.
And, you know, like, where does that,
So let's
those
sit down and
decisions
go
come
away
in?
for a while.
We try and be really transparent about it. So the process is basically we go around and we scope out these different challenges internally within the city. And then we basically come up with we have an internal vetting process. So we have different kind of leaders around the city who weigh in on those projects and whether that's the sort of right portfolio. And then we just write up little scopes and then we email it to all the partners, and then partners get to vote their top 3 projects that they are interested in working on. And then we do a magical process of trying to get everyone at least, you know, one of their top 3. And then, you know, working on it from there.
Awesome. Good. Thank you, Krista.
Oh. Yeah.
Any more?
Well, just briefly,
Good.
just
Yeah,
how many
yeah.
partners
Keep
do
on
you work
going.
with at one time?
So it's changed every year. Our first year we had 4, and then we went up to 8, and then I think it sort of fluctuates every year. So, but our model is really to think about it like a bench. So we have a bench of partners, and some years they will be playing, and some years they'll, you know, want to step back. And the whole idea is, you know, we want to continue to just build this community of people that want to give back. And so even if you're not participating in a particular cohort, we're still going to invite you to demo day and other kind of networking events. So yeah, it's been ranged from like 4 to 9.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you for the opening of the evening.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for
Krista.
having me.
Perfect.
You actually have
Awesome.
finished the program.
Fasten your seatbelts, take your seats. Nobody's not, thank goodness, nobody's not smoking, so I don't have to turn off your cigarettes.
The demo day is February. Okay. So yeah, talk to them. Okay. Yeah.
Me who is always, and everybody from the online as well, welcome back. So hopefully the push-ups went well. You can tweak your number. We're gonna continue with thinking exercise. Like I said, I always compare this holistic, horizontal design thinking based on a customer service journeys or customer experiences, and then the single solutions on a vertical one. So we're going to stretch our minds to very horizontal, very much of a service journey oriented approach, and had the pleasure to work with Bethany now to learn how kind of deeply and how good the design journeys can actually be drawn and thought. Welcome on stage. Hey! We're gonna keep it very talkative. I'll let you introduce the subject first, and then we'll facilitate the discussion after that.
Great.
Alrighty.
So yeah, as Teppo said, I do service design. Who here actually knows what that is or has heard of it? Service design. Hey, we have a few people. Awesome. Who here's a service designer? Yes. Nice to meet you. Hi. Cool. So I'm going to talk about service design, obviously, but more specifically the travel sector. So there's a lot of similarities between service design in general and like key parts that make up what service design is versus what does that look like within the travel sector and how to make that come to life. So yeah, I'm going to use references of talking about Bay Area transit to sort of make some comparisons so you can kind of see more what I mean, because I don't know how many people here have publicly traveled around used public transit to work that better. Who hasn't used public transit? More interesting. Great, okay, so essentially everyone raised hand. Cool. All right, so let's get into it. What makes up service design itself? So here are some of the areas I believe make up service design. Total customer experience. So customer care, how are your customers actually cared for? Brand presence, product benefits, service performance, usability itself, yes, and emotional support. So some guiding principles I tend to use throughout all my projects are, what are the business goals? What is it that they are needing to achieve? KPIs, things like that. What are the key customer needs? And then what is the overall target experience that we need to aim for? And kind of using those three in alignment, that would usually be how I would go about designing service. So again, as I said, talk about it in respect to travel. What can service design do? Service design building blocks for the customer. So what do we mean by travel itself and who the traveler is? So I am talking about it as anyone going from point A to point B. So this could be planning a vacation, this could be commuting to work, anything going from A to B. This also includes the planning of it beforehand, all the way to kind of reflecting on your experience afterwards, calling customer service to get a refund, things like that. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the building blocks and all the different key elements that I believe the traveler themselves are looking for in an experience. So sometimes when we sort of go to do service design or a design project, it might be focusing on one key element of technology or one key area of improving the experience, but service design looks at things from kind of 10 or 50,000 feet level, looking down at what does the overall picture look like and what are all the elements that need to come together. So that's kind of the angle I'm taking here. So one aspect is tech that leads the passenger or the traveler along the way. So this could be Apple Watches, Google Watches, this could be your phone or logging on to buy tickets online, anything that is at all tech related. Excellent customer service impacts the traveler. So this is if anything goes wrong or if you just need a bit of guidance, being at BART, who's available, should you need a hand at any stage, things like that. Positive brand awareness, benefits that suit the user's needs. So BART has benefits for employee side of things. They have like some monthly passes only in the city but not outside. There's lots of very different benefits. That would be an example. Understanding service usability. So great, you've got technology, but is it usable? Is it something that as soon as you interact with it, you actually know how to use it? So that would impact their experience. And then overall having their travel needs met. Was it really hot and really crammed, or various different things that could impact your emotional travel needs. So those are all the sort of slices that I would look at from a traveler's perspective of what would impact this journey. And so going from there to design things. And then not only does there need to be change from a customer standpoint, so you can design a journey all day long, but there's a lot of building blocks internally within a company or business or government, very complex, that would need to sort of work well together to essentially fight for the human in the other side. So internally, some of the building blocks to essentially impact tech leading the customer would be project managers and digital designers and legal and compliance. They would all need to be taking ownership of the customer and really fighting for them and really believing in their needs. Customer experience operations, human resources, IT, process excellent people need to be considering what is an excellent customer service look like for the traveler. Brand people, again, customer experience experts for positive brand awareness, strategic marketing, commercial people, and technologists to kind of help bring the benefits that actually suit the person's needs. I believe there was an example of a retail example where someone would shop, I think it was Waitrose in the UK, and they would, if you had their application or a part of their loyalty scheme, they would actually send you benefits that they knew that you were shopping for. So say you've just had a kid, they might send you sort of a discount on diapers, or it would actually understand and know who you were. So making those benefits specific to your needs. Again, for service usability, IT, and operations, again, taking ownership of the customer. And then emotional travel needs, again, project managers, and again, customer experience people, taking ownership of the customer again. So going back to my Bay Area example, business goals. What would some business goals be? Say we've all aligned across the Bay Area transit system and everybody has worked together and decided that the business goal is, I don't know why it's having different names, to be the best transit system in North America. So that's a business goal, a very high level one. Say we've done lots and lots of research, interviewed various different passengers, and we've collected all the data together, and we found that the one overarching factor is to communicate with, to commute with minimum effort is a key customer need. And then, and then say we've understood what the vision needs to be, we've all come together and created this target experience for what everyone's saying needs to happen for the ideal service journey, then making it successfully seamless. Say that is what we're saying. This is kind of my quick take on what that would look like. So internally you have everybody in every department believing that human on the other side's needs, everyone's aligned on what the customers or passenger or traveler, what their overarching pain points are, and they're owning that and they're looking at specific ways to change that. So ideally going from this type of tech and employees that are difficult to find and come across, customer service that you sometimes just don't have, service usability that isn't completely clearly explained, to brand awareness that is there to some extent, but how does it impact your life more than just informational, or emotional needs being met. So going from something like this to an experience like ideally this, where you've got technology that's augmenting your direction, potentially through transit, or you've got benefits that are actually very specific to the needs people have, that are tied into this loyalty to using this transport system, to customer service where the people serving your needs look and dress and feel the part and are serving you with excellence, to service usability where you don't even have to have a payment system, it's facial recognition and you've already paid, you don't have to log on and add your card, which are some projects we're working on here. Positive brand awareness, having any type of brand sort of presence actually be something useful like a keychain if it's related to homes and same places. And generally having emotional needs met, which this is a great example of partnerships that can be created as well, and that's the kind of third angle of, so you've got internally in the business, then you've got partners, and then you've got the customer through different key partners. So this could be maybe different sort of restaurants or cafes, all partnering together that are along the transit space, maybe on a hot day bringing their local ice cream to the transit area to essentially sell ice cream. So these are me trying to explain the building blocks of service design within the travel sector. Any questions?
I have a couple.
Great.
We were asking our teams globally. We have what, 7 or 8 like travel, ferry, cruising, airliners,
Yes.
airports working with us on generating like a different service experience for their clients. Most of them, in the end of last year, when we were asking like, what is driving the change? Why is the change? How would their customer experience or service experience will be changing? We were asking that, like, what is fueling that change? Is it like the higher customer needs? Are you wanting to cut costs, like operational efficiency, or why would this like happen at the moment? It's a lengthy question. Sorry about that. So what drives down there is that there's possibilities that didn't exist like earlier. You mentioned a couple of like technological things, facial recognitions or camera recognitions that enable actually, yes, controlling in some countries, in some situations, but they also enable totally different experiences, like payment through face or like authentication through your voice, which is getting more and more possible all the time. Is it technology? Is it actually like tech enabling, or is it more of a companies actually learning to be more customer focused?
I think it's both, and I think back to some of what Krista was saying as well, it's very complex, and this is me kind of explaining an ideal situation of how everything would work coming together. We all know that's actually a lot more complex within working with any business, and even more so government. So I think the answer in designing a seamless experience entirely and what enables that, I think technology is a huge part. I think the technology has to be really good and has to be really strong to actually make that high usability in the seamless interaction. And then I think partnerships are really key, and people all working together to make that happen. And I think it's both internal, actually truly understanding customer needs, and I think that would be the highest priority is understand the humans on the other side, is what you're making or creating helpful or harmful, and I think everyone having that question is key, and then technology is a huge role in any.
Okay. Curtis?
So, I mean, one of the things I was thinking about is obviously this is a great example of sort of, mass transit within the city. But
Right.
the other part that you were talking about was sort of airports and
Right.
things like that. And I find that for me, since just traveling so much, that one of the things I'm always curious about is, I find myself wanting to use the local transportation system, but often there's sort of barriers to my being like, okay, how does their system work?
Yeah.
How do I do this?
Right.
And I think even one of an interesting example was sort of the Uber example of like where I suddenly realized that my one Uber app kind of worked globally, and I was able to sort of be like, oh, I can just go, I'm in Thailand, cool, like let me look up, let me order something.
Sure.
So when it comes to looking at some of these scenarios, sort of like the, whether it's BART, I mean, airports are a little more, you have to focus on international, people coming from everywhere, but is that sort of a factor that we can look at in terms of, like, especially for people coming to San Francisco, about how does a person, I mean, beyond just having a connection at SFO, but like how can they sort of intelligently manage?
Absolutely.
So is that something?
Yeah.
How easy
Is
is
that looked
it
at all, or is that a?
Absolutely. I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning, presentation, and rewind here. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that is one really key customer angle and viewpoint that would ideally come out in lots of customer research, and understanding who your users are, and ideally looking at what the different segments are. And making sure that if we create, say, 6, 7, 8 customer segments, and understand one of those are people coming in completely fresh and have never used it before, do they know how to use it? Is it easily adoptable? Is it clear and consistent? That messaging. How does that make them feel? And coming from anywhere, every direction, are there clear language translations? Is it easy to understand without knowing language at all? Is it clear to people that are visually impaired? All those questions have to be answered in order to have anyone adopt it properly, and then go into just using it every day for your daily commute. And that interaction might look different. It might look like just use the same thing I did yesterday, and you click one button rather than like engaging it. So yeah, you would absolutely have to consider that.
I think there's 2 great examples actually of that, like 2 cities in the world where during the last year happened, I think, reasonably remarkable experiences. First one was London, that actually enabled like any mobile payment on any public transportation. So when you land into the Heathrow Gatwick, if you're Samsung Pay, your Apple Pay, you're okay to go any gate, you're good on. Just forget about anything else. And I thought that was radical, in a sense that, you know, hey, that's good, that's definitely good customer service. The city or the transport chain had understood its position well. Whereas in just by the May last year, we had a town of Tallinn, which is 800,000 people. Also a heavy tourist attraction during the high season, decided to give up any payment. They made whole public transportation free for the whole year, both for the people living in the city and for the tourists. And then I just recently read the like research done afterwards, that was it actually a positive or negative impact for the economy of the city? That should they have collected that, you know, $1.2 that was the fee for the, you know, every person traveling for a day in Tallinn, and the economical impact to the actual business in the city was actually vice versa. It was positive. So even though they didn't collect any money, especially the tourists, they traveled more within the city, which generated more economical impact, more money leaving into the city during the time of their cruise stopover or their planning in the city. So I think that was, especially the example of Tallinn, was an example of kind of a radical innovation that can happen when you actually start from your thinking from the beginning. What is the role of the city, and you know, why are we doing this public transportation, and why are we collecting money, and all of that.
Yeah,
So,
which comes back to it being an even like more complex layer of partnerships, and what are those, how to create good partners for a system like that.
And the prediction just currently is that China will open like 2 cities where your full public transportation is done with a biometrical payment, either your face or your way of walking.
Your way of walking?
Your way of walking, because you can pretty easily teach a machine learning model to track your way of walking, and it's actually extremely hard to break that code. So if you can track a person walking down the hallway more than 30 feet, you can like authenticate the person, you know, accurately enough to put the payment through.
Crazy.
Everybody has their own magic touch.
But you walk differently when you walk next to someone who's walking faster, right?
Yeah, true.
Or slower.
Yeah.
What was the name of the city? You said Tallinn?
Tallinn, Estonia, the capital of Estonia, over there in the Baltic. They made it. It's you can find very public, you know, studies about the fact of, you know, a city that actually gave up the whole fee and ticketing system for the public transportation.
That's great.
Not a very technical innovation, but it's still very impactful. Put it that way. Good. Any other thoughts? Couple of takeaways, definitely. Plan your customer experience very well. And secondly, be ready for actually being disrupted on a purely non-technical way. That was at least my takeaway from that one. I'm going to say thank you. Thank you, Bethany. Thank you, Krista. You're all free to stay. There's definitely time to mingle, time to talk around. It was a thoughtful evening. Raised up some thoughts. That was the whole idea. Thank you for all coming in, and thank you for all challenging that. Thank you. Thank you for the streaming and everybody online.
Hey.
Planning that, right?
Nice to meet you guys.
Well, so I'm not sure where this is from, but one of those is my